I think that as our business has now matured, I've recognized that the only thing holding our business back is me. Obviously, I'm very confident in my abilities, and it's hard to let things go. But I recognize that for our business to succeed, I had to get out of the way.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Connected Advisor. I'm your host, Kyle Van Pelt, co-founder and CEO. And today I am joined by Jeremy Nelson. Jeremy is the founder and president of Element Wealth, and he is a frustrated golfer because he doesn't get to play as much as he wants to after playing in college. Jeremy, thanks so much for joining the show.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. All right. So Jeremy, I ask everybody the same question to start these episodes off, and you're not going to be any different. What I've found through all kinds of conversations with people in this industry is that everybody has a unique path to where they're sitting right now. Some people, that path might be traditional. They might be following in family footsteps, and this is what their family's always done. Some people kind of came into the side door of the industry. They were doing something completely different. They found out that this was even a thing, and they ended up this way. But what I've found is whether your path is traditional or untraditional, everybody has what we refer to as a money moment. And that money moment is something that happened in your life where the light bulb went off and it clicked for you. Hey, this is what I want to do with my career. And it led to you sitting in the chair you're sitting in now having this conversation. So Jeremy, for you, what was that money moment?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, mine actually goes back probably to when I was about 10 years old and I was on a hockey trip. So I grew up in British Columbia, Canada, and we pulled up to this store, Canadian Tire. And my dad said, like, hey, we own Canadian Tire. And I'm thinking, now, so this is kind of like a old school Walmart before super Walmarts is kind of I think the easiest way to describe this store. And I'm thinking, wait, we own Canadian Tire? We're rich? And like, my parents have been holding back on me, right? But it turns out that, no, we own shares of Canadian Tire. So that was kind of my initial entry point into learning about investing. And it was always something that I was interested in. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be a golf professional or do this. And then I did an internship when I was in college at Legg Mason and I had a great time there. Everyone was really great to me. I did recognize that I didn't want to be a broker. I wanted to be more of an advisor. And so I actually started my career at a trust company in operations.
That's awesome. I kind of relate to that money moment a little bit. When I was a kid, my brother, for my birthday, I think it was, got me a couple of shares of Nintendo stock because he was
wow.
He was like, my brother's much older than me, but he was like, you are, you love Nintendo, you love these things and he started showing me all the things that I love that Nintendo owned. And so he's like, and now you own a portion of those things that you really like. And that's like how this works with the stock market. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And so I think that's a great way of people kind of getting their beak wet on how this whole industry works, because it kind of creates a spark. And then you start wanting to learn a lot more and understand the inner workings of all of it. And then you end up working for a trust company.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, I love the fact that you got started at such a young age, right? I was introduced to the concept at a young age, and I love listening to my son and his friends. He's got one friend, Benjamin. So I'll give a shout out to Benjamin here, and I'll let him know he'll listen to the podcast. But Benjamin wants to be a hedge fund manager, and so every time I go to their house and we'll have little family get-togethers, he's asking me all kinds of questions. He's reading the quants right now, and then my son Gavin, he's big into it. It's a lot of fun to see kids at a young age interested in the markets.
Yeah. Shout out Benjamin. Maybe Element Wealth will get you some of your first allocation one day. Who knows?
I have to set him up with an internship.
Yeah, that's right. Awesome, man. Well, all right. So you were recently named the fastest growing RIA in Mississippi by CityWire. Some of the research shows that you mentioned two aspects of that growth are client retention and referral. So I wanted to dig into those. Lots of people talk about growing their business through referrals. Probably the number one thing that I hear from advisors, RIAs, hey, word of mouth referrals, all of that type of stuff. But it seems like you've kind of productized it or created a little bit of a process around it. So what is it about that has helped you guys become the fastest growing RIA in Mississippi?
So we really don't have a process for referrals. We're not a high pressure sales kind of business. I don't want to be the person that shows up to the golf club or shows up to an event and people are like, oh, let me hide. Jeremy's going to try to sell me something. In fact, I like to go to the golf club and not talk about work at all, just enjoy time with my family, right? But ultimately, I think that what creates the referrals is when you do a good job for people, right? And so when I started Element back in 2017, there were a few core principles. And the first one was clients come first, right? And obviously, this sounds like that's so basic and it should just be that way. But look, you've been in the business a long time. I've been in the business a long time. And that's not always true. And so when you do a good job with your clients, when you connect with them on a personal basis, when you understand where they are in life, what they're trying to achieve, you're working together in a partnership, they're going to be really willing to refer you because they like you, right? And so that's been our approach is, hey, go above and beyond, connect with your clients, take care of them, become friends. And ultimately, that's what leads to referrals.
Well stated. Okay, so pretty recently, a year and a half ago or so, you guys merged with Ross and Yerger. And one of the quotes that we saw was from the initial conversations, it was abundantly clear that you guys both shared the value of putting your clients' interests first. Is that kind of what you're talking about here? Just, hey, let's just do a good job and good things are going to happen. I mean, is that why those two things, kind of coincided and came together?
Yeah, so culture matters. We were at an interesting point within our business. So when I left the trust company and I was starting up Element back in 2017, it was a gamble, right? I mean, it was just one of those things like, hey, let's get going. And so I had some clients that were coming. We were going to make everything, we were going to make Element this great company. And I had one person that I'd recruited from a bank to come and work with me. And I had two partners that reached out to me. So Danny Williams and Barry Smith. And they were kind of older in their career. But I'd known Danny because we were on the board of the Financial Planning Association together. So we went back, well over a decade at the time. So Danny and I, we started talking and they were kind of looking at bringing someone younger into the business. And I said, hey guys, well, I'm not really looking for a job here. This is what I'm doing. They said, well, that's what we want to do. And so we ended up actually kind of coming together and we merged Woodridge Capital and Element together. So we basically ended up taking their RIA, rebranding it Element and bringing all the new services that Element did above and beyond portfolio management. Well, I had a choice, right? So I could buy my partners out, which means basically there's no more cash flow left to reinvest in the business to grow. You're basically taking every little bit that you can get to pay your partners off. Or we were actually approached by Ross and Yerger because one of my good friends, Preston Francis, works there. And I was telling him one day, we're having beers after work, and he said, hey, I said, these private equity firms keep calling us because we've shown up on this CityWire list. And I think the last one was 3 out of 4 years. We were the fastest growing RIA. So all of a sudden you get all the private equity people calling you. And I was like, look, I really don't want to go work for somebody again. I've done that before, right? I started Element because I didn't want to do that. And he goes, well, hey, will you talk to Dudley? And obviously I had high regard for Ross and Yerger. They didn't do what we did. And ultimately, it gave me the opportunity to use their balance sheet to buy my partners out. I get to be a shareholder in Ross and Yerger, and we get to continue to invest in growth and bring in new talent so we can continue to better serve our clients. So really, the big reason we did it was that I felt like it was in the best interest of our clients, right? Where instead of me being in a bunch of debt to buy my partners out, we could just use their balance sheet. We culturally fit. I mean, they leave us alone. I mean, they're the best partners we could ever imagine. And we're just able to go out and do what we do. And every time I want to hire a new staff member or, bring a new advisor on now, I just go in and say, here's what I want to do and here's why. And they go, great. Keep doing what you're doing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So that's a really cool story about how you creatively solved a problem you were trying to solve there. But one thing that was sitting in my mind as I was thinking about that is, you talked about culture. And even if two firms are aligned culturally from a philosophical perspective, when you merge or you buy or you acquire, there's always kind of challenges of integrating firms, all of that type of stuff when you go through something like that. And I know a lot of the people listening to this are either thinking about doing their first one of those, or, maybe they're going through one right now or something like that. So any tips or advice or insights you want to share on making sure culture stays strong when you're going through a merger or something like that?
Yeah, I think, the first thing is you can't just put lip service on the idea that culture matters, because if you have a culture that is not compatible, it's not going to work, right? So you've really, really, really got to lay it out, and you've got to be transparent. I mean, the one thing about me is, look, I just put it on the table. And sometimes people think that I might be brash or even arrogant, but look, I'm just going to put it on the table. You're going to know exactly what I think, where I stand. And so as we went through our process, there was a lot of honesty. I asked a lot of questions. They asked a lot of questions of me. And ultimately, we were able to get to that point where I knew how things were going to work as we were going forward. And then once you make the transaction, though, right, you have to continue to communicate. So for us, the real benefit was, like, we didn't even change our name. We're still Element Wealth, because Ross and Yerger did not have a wealth management arm. So we're kind of like a subsidiary, right? It's not like we're necessarily trying to merge processes and procedures. I mean, we've leveraged accounting, HR, some of those aspects of our business that just make it easier for us to focus on our clients. But one of the things I did early on is I said, hey, look, you guys have an executive leadership team meeting once a month. Give me 20 to 30 minutes so that I can give you an update. So not only were we transparent at the beginning, we've been transparent as we've gone along. And so even when there's a little hiccup, stuff happens, right? It's just, hey, here's what's going on. Here's the plan, and keep executing, keep being transparent, because that's how you maintain trust. And I think that trust is one of the most important things in any culture.
That's really good. We've talked about culture. We've talked about having a culture of client service, and that's what leads to referrals and things like that. Perhaps there's not much here. Maybe there's a lot here. I don't know, but I'm just thinking about it. One of the reasons why you guys have grown so well too is client retention. And is there anything unique that you guys do from a client retention perspective, or is it kind of chalked up to some of the stuff you've already said, which is, hey, if we just really focus on doing a great job, they're not going to go anywhere? Or if there's anything insightful, I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about that too.
Your staff. I've got to give a shout out to Lee, who sits up front. I mean, when somebody walks in our office, it's like she's their best friend. People feel so welcome, right? And the service that comes with that. And we do touch points, right? We do, birthday touch points and different things like that throughout the year, where we remind our clients how much we appreciate them, how much we do care about them, right? And so I'll say this, there's only so much that an advisor can do, because there's only so many hours in the day, right? And in order to have a successful business, you've got to build leverage into the process. Well, that's where your staff comes in. And we have an incredible staff. Like, the number one thing that I am most proud of is that we have never had anyone quit, ever. Right. And so when you have that consistency, your clients know your staff. Again, it's like we mean this when we say this, but we want you to be a part of the Element family. And that's what makes it a great place to work and a great place for our clients to be clients.
Yeah. Okay. So now I got to ask you, because I think that's the mark of a great leader, that you have highlighted your staff as one of the reasons why clients stay with you and that you're creating leverage in the business. I would say 99% of the people who listen to this are hiring people. They're, they have staff, all of that type of stuff. Do you have any specific training or onboarding or things that you guys do to try and help make these people successful? Or is it just kind of like, ready, fire, aim, and, we'll kind of iterate as we go along the way? Or how do you think about that, Jeremy?
So when we were a startup, I'm not going to lie. It was ready, aim, fire. It was just, hey, you're scratching and clawing. And I think that as our business has now matured, where I've gotten to is I've recognized that the only thing holding our business back is me. That's a hard thing for somebody who thinks of much as themselves as I think of myself, right? Obviously, I'm very confident in my abilities, and it's hard to let things go. But I recognize that for our business to succeed, I had to get out of the way because everything was running through me. So Julianne, who's now taken over as our chief compliance officer, she kind of heads up operations as well. I've tasked people who have more time and are probably more talented than me to come up with the training programs, to really put the onus and the responsibility on them that, hey, the success of these people is on you. And I want you to care about them and their success as much as I care about your success.
That's a great answer. All right. So as you've grown, we're a technology company. I love to ask folks like you about how they're using technology to create operating leverage and to help grow your business. And you talked about too, to be a great business owner, you have to create leverage in your business. So talk a little bit about the role that technology has played in helping you be one of the fastest growing RIAs in Mississippi.
Well, so that's actually a really interesting question. So when I started Element, there was 5 key principles, right? I just read Ray Dalio's book, right? So I was like, oh, principles, this is such a great idea. And obviously, I mentioned earlier, clients come first. That's the first. Number 2 is transparency, be transparent. Number 3 is leverage technology. Because the reality is that the industry is changing rapidly. I think back to when I started 21 years ago now. It was still largely a commission-based industry. RIAs there weren't many of them, right? Fee-based accounts, there weren't many. Most things were still commission-based. And what we have to do for clients is so much more complex now, right? We have to get involved with Roth conversion calculations and tax optimization and portfolio management and all the stuff that we do, insurance needs, all these things, right? And so the only way to be efficient in that is technology, right? Because you've got to have the technology for the onboarding, the portfolio management, the financial planning, risk analytics, all those things, right? And by putting that at the center of our business, right, operationally, it enables us to handle more and more clients, right? And, the reality is, we don't bill by the hour. And so for us to be efficient in our business and grow it, we have to use that technology to be able to take on more clients. And that's what continues growth.
Is there any piece of technology specifically that you feel like has helped you accomplish that the most and see that principle come to life?
Well, I will say the one piece of technology that I have used for a very, very long time is actually a financial planning software that helps us show people everything in one place and bring everything to life right in front of their eyes. So that helps. Then now as an RIA, our core technology hub, right, that everything integrates into, we're multi-custodial, right? So we have 3 custodians that we work with. Everything flows into a hub. And so, all the compliance, portfolio trading, all that kind of stuff comes in. That's the piece that enables us to scale the operations of our business. And then the client-facing piece really is that financial planning software.
This podcast is brought to you by Termcast. We make game-changing content for fintech and financial services companies. Learn more at turncast.com.
Hey, this is Judd Mackerel. Thanks for listening to this show. I just wanted to ask you one question. What's your technology and data strategy for 2025? If you can't clearly answer that question, I'd love to talk. We are spending some specific time with select firms to really go deep and help you clearly answer that question. We believe that it's one of the things that often holds back firms from really achieving their potential, from really achieving growth, and really getting a lot of the things in the position that they need to be. The things that are holding up the way that you scale, like your workflows, how you manage data around your revenue, how you report all of that to your advisors, and getting clarity in all those things. I'm sure there's a lot of very specific things to your business that are really important as well, and we'd love to talk about that. If this is interesting to you, hit me up with an email. My direct email is judd@milemarker.co, and I'd love to hear from you, hear what you're working on, hear what your strategy is, and see if there's an opportunity for us to help you get more clear on that strategy in 2025. Thanks.
Awesome. All right. So since we're talking about technology, I want to do something that I always love. And, this is also timely because it's the beginning of the year. Happy New Year to everybody listening, by the way. I want you to get out your crystal ball. So when you're talking about technology, when we're at the new year, it's fun to kind of make predictions and think about what's going to happen. But, part of being in the seat that you're in is trying to figure out where the industry is going, where things are going to go. So Jeremy, I want you to get your crystal ball out. I want you to peer into it a couple years in the future and tell us what kinds of trends or predictions you see coming down the pipe for the RIA industry.
I think that the number one thing that we are going to find is that AI is going to become our best friend. Right now, a lot of people think that AI is going to replace advisors. I don't think so, because there is still a human element to what we do, right? But I think that AI is going to become a massive productivity tool that we're going to be able to leverage. And we're just scratching the surface. I mean, there's nothing out there today that's just like a game changer yet, but I can see where it's going, that as we look out 2 to 5 years and we see the tools that are going to come that are going to be more AI enabled, it's going to allow us to do a much better job, be more efficient. That's my number one prediction, is that AI doesn't replace us, AI makes us better.
Yeah. I think that's a good prediction. Is there any specific, I call them jobs to be done, that you see AI enablement really adding kind of steroids to the process? I know you mentioned before that one of the tools you've always been bullish on and that you're thankful for is your planning tools, for example. So is that an area where you see it happening, or is there other areas where you see a job to be done being AI enabled that's going to make things much more powerful?
I think a lot of the data entry, right? So I think about it from the perspective of, all right, let me think about my support staff. I don't think that AI replaces any of my support staff. I think that AI takes a lot of the menial things that they have to do and gets them out of that and gives them time back to focus on client service, right? So ultimately, I think that the winners in the industry are going to be the ones who take the AI, right, and take the time that it gives their employees, and instead of just getting rid of those employees, right, they say, no, okay, now we're going to double down on service, right? We're going to double down on, taking care of our clients. Those are going to be the winners. I think that people who just kind of let the AI run the shop, they're going to end up struggling because they're going to lose some of that human element.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. I kind of want to dig into that a little bit as a conversation I feel like I've had with some folks, which is, as a premise, I agree. I think AI is going to be an enabler. I think it will replace some stuff, not advisors in whole or any of those types of things, but I think there's just certain jobs that it can replace. But, it raises this notion. I feel like I've heard you say the term human first quite a bit. You've talked about being the person at the club who, isn't hard selling things, all of that type of stuff, right? And providing good service. What do you think that is going to look like as AI becomes, where I guess more and more stuff that we interact with digitally is going to be AI based? How are you thinking about leveraging the human interactions more as an advisor to help you build deeper relationships and better relationships?
At the end of the day, half of what we do is interpret, right? So, if you think about, you've got a client and you're doing an estate plan, right? I've got one client, he's been with me forever. I mean, he's like family to me. And we're going through, he's kind of borderline has an estate tax issue. And there was a lot of concern pre the election, right? That, okay, well, what happens if Trump doesn't win or the Republicans don't get control of the House? What's going to happen with the estate tax, the expiration of the tax code? Obviously, nothing's been solved yet, but the probability that the estate tax stays at the level it's at has gone up, right? Well, this client and I, we meet with the estate planning attorney, we meet with his accountants. It's not what he deals with. He gets it to a certain degree, but I'm the translator there, right? And so ultimately, AI can be handling a lot of some of the back office things, but that frees you up to spend more time face to face with people, right? I mean, I always tell our advisors, look, the phone's not going to ring just sitting at your desk, right? You're not getting new clients just sitting there, right? You need to be out. Well, AI as a productivity tool frees up your time, which allows you to go out and be with more people. Now, ultimately, could that potentially translate into some cost savings, right? A little bit of fee reduction, potentially, I could see that. But we haven't seen major trends where fees are coming down. They're already pretty low for what we do.
I think that's really a really good statement. Because I think, ultimately what you're saying, I'm reading into it a little bit, but it's AI is going to create more time for us. A lot of people, for better or for worse, we've all been so busy over the past, however many years, right? There's so much to do. There's always something to do. The advent of iPhones, work is always with us. All of these things are always with us. But maybe now AI is going to create opportunity to get some of that time back. And, the question is, what are you going to actually do with that time? And I think that's going to be the big key.
Yeah, I think you're nailing it, right? It's okay, so yes, I'm a frustrated golfer because I never get to play, right? So am I going to take the time that AI provides me to go play more golf? Honestly, probably not, right? I'm going to use it to focus on continuing to build our business, to continue to service clients, to do the best job that we possibly can. Now, look, yeah, are there going to be some advisors who are going to use it to go play more golf? Probably. And that's okay. But those are people who are in lifestyle businesses, not growth businesses, right? We are a growth company and we want to continue to grow. And the reason we want to continue to grow is that we want to serve more people. We want to help more people. And so for us, as we get technology that can enable us to get time back, we're going to double down in putting it into growth.
Well stated. All right, Jeremy, we are going to move into the final segment of the show, which is what we call the Milemarker Minute. It's kind of a series of lightning round questions. The goal is to have all of the questions answered in a minute or less. Not going to hold you to it, but that's the idea. It should be fun and lighthearted. So are you ready for the Milemarker Minute?
I'm ready.
Okay. Lots of people extol the virtues of Toronto and Vancouver and areas of Canada, but is it true that British Columbia is the most beautiful part of Canada?
Hands down. It's not even close. I mean, now, part of Alberta, okay, so the Rocky Mountains, which is basically an extension of BC. But yes, overall, British Columbia is hands down the most beautiful province.
Okay. Does it also create the most talented hockey players?
I mean, I'm going to have to say no. I mean, yes, there are some greats, like Joe Sakic, who I got to meet one time. I mean, fantastic hockey player. But I mean, look, let's talk about Wayne Gretzky, right? Ontario, Crosby. I mean, they're not from the West, but I'll at least admit Ontario and Quebec have put out some pretty good hockey players.
Fair enough. You mentioned the Rockies. I love to ask people this. Are you a mountains or a beach person?
I'm a mountains person all day, but I'm not necessarily like a hiker per se. I like being in the mountains. I just love that scenery.
I think Mississippi gets unfairly criticized by a lot of people and different things in the country. So what is like the number one highlight of Mississippi that you would tell the world?
I would tell the world that the people in Mississippi are the nicest people you will ever meet. I mean, honestly, I've lived here for 24, going on 25 years now, including college. My entire professional career has been in Mississippi. And I've just made the most incredible friends. I mean, the people in this state are just genuinely awesome. I mean, I just can't tell you how great the people here are. And I'll say this, the greatest advantage of living in Mississippi is that the cost of living is so incredibly low. I mean, my college roommate, right, we had golf scholarships at Belhaven here. He was from British Columbia as well. He lives in Vancouver. And I mean, we won't even talk about what his mortgage is compared to mine and the lifestyle that we get to live here compared to up there.
Well stated. All right. That's great to talk about home. This is another question I love to ask people. If you could travel anywhere in the world you've never been to before, where would you go?
So I'm going to say Italy on this one. So there's a multitude of reasons here. And number one is my grandmother was 100% Italian. Her sisters and mother were actually born in Italy, but she was actually born in Canada. So she was first generation. And my mother has never been. And so it's her 70th birthday this year. And our plan is we're not going to do it this summer because apparently it's a once every 25 year religious pilgrimage that's going on. So we're going to push it out probably till next spring break. But Italy for sure. You know, I'd love to go see where my Nona was from.
I love that. All right. It's a new year, so we're going to have to go back to 2024 for this. But what was the best book that you read last year or listened to?
I think the best one I read was probably The Psychology of Money.
Morgan Housel. Good one.
Yeah, Morgan Housel. It was fascinating. I ended up last year, I did a lot of reading on culture building, things like that. But yeah, the Psychology of Money is very fascinating. And again, I think that if you think about us as advisors, right, we are like money psychologists with people in a lot of cases. So that was a fascinating book.
Awesome. All right. Well, you made it through the Milemarker Minute. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think you shared a bunch of great insights around, you know, what it looks like to just be in growth mode and build companies and navigate things like mergers, taking care of client service in times when you're growing and merging, which I think is an often overlooked component of growing a business like yours. And talk to us about where things are going to be. So I loved the conversation, Jeremy. Thanks so much for coming on the show and dropping all of those insights with our audience.
Greatly appreciate the time. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, everybody, that's been another episode of The Connected Advisor. Please make sure you click follow or subscribe wherever you're listening to this. And if you'd be so kind as to go leave us a review wherever you are listening to this so that somebody who's never heard of this show can find great conversations like the one we just had with Jeremy, we'd really appreciate it. But until next time, enjoy every mile.